Hi ladies, welcome to Alluvia Collective. You are in the explore section of the page, so it's free here. I've got a number of trainings for you to listen to and learn from. Take a look around, and this gives you a little bit of an idea about what the weekly coachings are going to be like in tier 1, and from those I do sift sheets, so you get to sort of record, stack, go into it, constantly looking for that information, as well as join the rich chat with other women to talk about what's going on in this phase of our life. So welcome to this training, which is around nutrition basics in peri and postmenopause. And to be honest, I find nutrition probably the area that most of my clients want to get involved with me around. Understanding and educating yourself around food, improving our relationship with food really is the most important thing that we need to do at this phase of our life. So let's take a little bit of a dive into this. So first of all, let's talk about the word diet versus nutrition. I'm going to try and use the word nutrition because unfortunately the word diet, especially the generation that we all are, if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, we've come through decades where the word diet has very negative connotations. It's associated with weight loss and restrictive behaviors. I'm not saying that anything wrong if there is a need for weight loss, but nutrition is a more important focus. It focuses on the importance of what food is to our overall health and well-being. And I am saying your mental and physical health and well-being. There is too much emphasis on food only being fuel, or food having a bit of a moral obligation to it being a reward or a punishment. It is our time to nourish, not punish our bodies. It's time to add things in and not restrict. And food is more than fuel. And I'm going to go into this a lot in tier 1 around repairing our relationship with food so that as we go forward, we have a mentally and physically better relationship with it towards our mind and our body. So let's look at something that's really quite critical to understanding just the energy. This is really the fuel part of food, if I'm honest. But it also stops us with that negative connotation around under eating and under fueling and some of the damage that sadly so many women have done to their bodies over the last 40 years or so. Let's look at your total daily energy expenditure. And some of you will know this TDEE by being given an amount to go into a calorie deficit if you're wanting to do weight loss, or if you've been on a scanner or a DEXA, it'll talk to you about your BMR, your basal metabolic rate. So look at that big blue portion at the bottom. So this is how your body uses energy over the day. And this might surprise most of you that your basal metabolic rate, which is just the amount of calories, and all calories is the energy that is derived from food. It's a measurement. Your BMR is what it takes to just keep the motor running. Your brain, your heart, your organs, your tissues, your reproductive system, or now I suppose we all have a lack of it, but keeping all of those things running, just keeping you running is your basal metabolic rate. And if you've ever had a scan done, I suppose for most of us, it'll sit somewhere between 1,000 calories and 1,500 calories, somewhere in around that range. It varies depending on your height, your weight, all sorts of things. However, there is not a lot you can do to change your BMR apart from the amount of lean muscle mass that you have. That has a direct impact on how many calories you burn at rest, which is one of the reasons we'll go on to talk about, especially in the training one, why having more muscle is so beneficial to how your body uses fuel. Muscle is metabolically active. But one thing that we have sadly all come through are diets that have us sitting at calorie counts below our BMR. So, quite frequently 10 years ago, I remember doing F45, and when those challenges came in, they'd just blanketly have women sitting at 1,200 calories a day. And I don't know many women whose BMR is actually anywhere under 1,200 calories a day, including mine, and I'm a tiny 5 foot nothing human. So you can see how dangerous that is. Just for an example, our brain weighs 2% of our body weight and uses 20% of that BMR. So how dangerous does it get to our body and mind to be consuming too few calories? Then you go up to our non-resting exercise energy expenditure, NREE, as opposed to our resting energy expenditure. And you'll see that our NEAT, our NEAT, our non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is just that sort of incidental movement that you do through the day, that actually takes up the biggest part of that non-resting energy expenditure. The TEF is your thermic effect from food. This is the amount of calories your body burns to break down food. Protein actually has the highest thermic effect of food. That doesn't mean that we should only eat protein, however. Not much we can do about that one apart from, yes, your macros. And then right at the top, that smallest line is your exercise activity thermogenesis, the amount of calories in comparison to all the others that your body burns from intentional exercise. So you can see there how that total daily energy expenditure works. Our body composition. Now, this is something that is actually really important in perimenopause and menopause because we're looking to reserve, preserve, and build muscle. And this is really important. But our body composition is made up of lots of things. I've known a few people have said to me, I've had a scan done and I am 30% fat and I've got, or they'll say to me, I've got 52% muscle, so all the rest must be fat. Well, our body doesn't work like that. You've got tissue and organs and bones, all the other things going on. So it's important, remember, there's other things in between your muscle mass and your fat. But body composition is much more important as a marker than BMI, which sadly GPs are still using. So what we are targeting is a good amount of lean muscle mass. And if you can grab a scan, that's the best way to find this out. Why do we need muscle? And this will come in many more trainings that I'm going to do. Women lose around 3 to 5% of their muscle mass each decade past 30. So do men. It accelerates from 60 unless we do something about it. And that something is weight training and eating the right food. And I'm not just going to say protein because I am very much changing my mind in this, and you'll see why if you join Alluvia and hear a lot more about me because it is a specialty area of mine. Declining estrogen has a negative impact on muscle. So estrogen is what we call anabolic. So it helps build muscle. So for those of us in postmenopause like myself, where I'm only getting my estrogen from HRT, it gets tougher. And we need to accept and realize that and put in place all of these other things that are going to support that. Our health benefits of muscle are around our strength and our mobility, less injuries, and that metabolically active. It's also really important for balancing your blood sugar, your insulin resistance. So that is super important. Your joint support and bone health, and your reduced risk of chronic disease. So nutrition, why is it so important? Well, our gut and brain are very closely linked. Our brain is fueled from the food, but also very closely linked to how our gut is feeling. Energy matters. We've got all these cognitive symptoms in perimenopause and menopause, and we need to support those by eating well. Our immune system, our sleep, our bone health, and retaining that lean muscle mass. But our relationship with food comes first. And as I've said, you can read all of those things I've put on the right-hand side. We have come through decades of deprivation and restriction in our diet. Keep it simple. And again, I am going to go into this in great detail in Tier 1 membership on a regular basis around nutrition because I do know it's the area most women need support with. But keep it simple, ladies. So see that diagram, the infographic on the bottom right, this sort of understanding how to put a plate together. If I'm looking at lunch and dinner, we tend not to have vegetables so much at breakfast, but 3 meals a day. And I will stick by this no matter who comes at me. And I'll go into that in great detail as to why it works. And there are a number of reasons, both mental and physical, that it just works, both for weight maintenance, for energy over the day, for getting the right amount of macros in, for your immune system, for your sleep, for so many reasons. If you're very active like I am, you're going to need snacks. You're going to need pre-workout fuel, and you're probably going to need other snacks. And sports nutrition and weight loss nutrition are not the same thing. So you need to speak to someone like myself who really understands that if you are very active. Eat predominantly whole foods. That is really important. Supplements are called that for a reason. They're unregulated. They're a processed food group, for example, like protein. I'm not saying don't eat protein powder into your diet, but it shouldn't be your main source of protein. Reducing ultra-processed foods, that's better for your gut, but don't be obsessed about it. And limiting added sugars. We want to eat all our macros. That includes carbohydrates, fats, and protein, and factor in micronutrients. And again, I will not be moved on that. Years of carb deprivation has caused terrible metabolic damage to women's bodies. Focus on fiber and protein though, and fiber is a really important one for that gut health that we need. Our gut microbiome is going to be so important to how we metabolize food, manage our weight, build muscle, etc., and our mental health. Don't skip meals or fast. You can read that again. Anyone can ask me questions about this. I do not believe in fasting for women our age. It does not support our goals. Do not follow restrictive diets unless you have a medical condition. That might be diabetes, it might be epilepsy or neurological disease. And believe me, I understand that. I've had a brain tumor taken out. So I do know there will be times where you will need to work with your medical provider in order to go through that. But for those who don't have a medical condition, can we please move away from ketogenic, low carb, intermittent fasting, fasting of any kind, juice cleansing, any of the above things? They are unnecessary. If you have a food allergy or an autoimmune disease, those are all different reasons. But there is very little proof, and I'll go into this in great detail about some of the other restrictions that people make. If you're very active, you need to know more around food and fueling, and that is, as I talked about at the beginning, that's something you need to work with someone who really understands that about. So breaking down that plate that I've got again, half of it, what's my protein source? Let's start with that. What's my palm full of? Whether it be lean meats, eggs, tofu, what does that protein source look like? Super important at every meal. Every one of those 3 meals. What's my complex carb source? Is it potatoes, kumra, rice, bread, whatever that may be? Where is my fiber? Making sure that we've got that fiber in my diet. And where are my micronutrients in my green leafy vegetables? And you can see about 1/4 of my plate carbs, 1/4 of my plate proteins, 1/2 of my plate vegetables. And that just helps us a little bit with that plate management. And last but not least, let's think about our healthy habits. Have a wee journal. You'll see this also in my training on training and movement. It's a great idea to have a little healthy habits journal and write a few things down, not too many. Maybe try 3 healthy habits a month. I don't like obsession, and people will learn that a lot about me. I'm all about not just positive mental health, but the joy of life. So could it be, I'm going to drink more water every day. I'm going to focus on eating 3 well-balanced whole food meals a day. I'm going to try increasing my protein intake. So maybe breakfast hasn't had any. I'm going to put some into that. Increasing my veggie intake, focusing a little bit on fiber, and ensuring that I incorporate complex carbs for energy and to prevent cravings. And if you want to know more about that, please reach out and I'll talk to you more about what we'll be doing in Tier 1. And sometimes around food, the one-to-one coaching, so dialing in a little bit for a few months to get that right is really important. So thank you, ladies. Thank you for joining me. Please have a look around all these coaching nuggets. They're going to give you a little bit of a flavor as to the kind of coaching that we're going to be doing on a regular basis. Take care and thanks for joining me.